And earlier on, I spoke to the BBC's former head of religion and ethics, Aaqil Ahmed. I asked him whether the news of this second young person being involved changes anything at this moment in time.
Jeremy, it's a very good question. I think what we have to ask ourselves now is just the detail of this particular second allegation. We don't really know much about it, just what's been released by the BBC. I don't know the timings or exactly what they're seeing. Obviously, it does make this seem like there may be a pattern, but again, we have to feel that the whole process has to go through. But what the BBC have done is actually do due process, and that's what this is. This is what's come out now because the story is out there. We don't know if it, obviously who the individual is, but because this story is out there, other people may come forward. And if, as is the case, as we've been allegedly, that these are real messages that are linked to this same particular presenter, then of course it shows that there is something that really does need to be investigated. But of course, at this moment in time, this is all just breaking news, and we need to kind of really get to the bottom of what it is, and also allow whether it be a police investigation or a BBC investigation to take place.
I also asked Aaqil how he would respond to suggestions that the BBC ought to have revealed this story themselves.
The reality is this: the complaint was made to the corporate sector, the complaints division, and actually it went through that kind of process. How anybody thinks that we live in a world where that the BBC journalists would then be told about something and then therefore should have broken it themselves, that would be breaking the confidentiality of the people who've made the complaint. The complaint gets made, it has to be investigated in the correct manner. And what's happened is, this is completely correct. Somehow, the family have gone to the Sun newspaper, and the Sun newspaper have decided to actually break this story. The BBC themselves can't break this story while they're actually investigating the story which is about them. So I think we have to understand, when people often look at the BBC, they look at this like monolithic kind of entity and think it's this big beast, it's this big kind of giant conglomerate, etc., which in many ways it is. It is a huge beast. But in this particular instance, one section is the corporate guys who were actually investigating a complaint about a person who allegedly, has behaved in a manner which may be unfitting for the BBC, or maybe even have committed crimes. We don't know. They were doing that. The journalist can't be tipped off about that, because that would be the wrong thing to do.
Really interesting. Joining me now, my panel, TalkTV presenter Nicola Thorp, journalist and campaigner Mike Buckley, and former Brexit Party MEP Alex Phillips. One and all, thank you, Nick. Aaqil saying there, investigated in the correct manner, right?
Yes.
Really? 7 weeks between, I think, the 29th, when they had that long conversation. But I mean, he painted a picture that the BBC is so big that they have to go through all these rigorous... Surely, if this person is, as they say, a star... The Director General would have known straight away, wouldn't he?
Look, I don't intend to be defending the BBC on this, but the Director General said in his interview this afternoon that they get roughly every 6 months 250 complaints about different people within the organisation, with varying levels of kind of seriousness to them. I can understand that initially, if this came forward, and let's say the accusations were that these photos had been sent, but they were over the age of 18, it was consensual. Also, let's not forget, the individual didn't come forward. It was their family. So it's not completely clear-cut. So, yeah, I think it would have been different if the actual young person had come forward.
The thing is, Alex, I'll take that point, Nick. The thing is, Alex, there's a second series of allegations at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Ollie says there might or might not be more. What's very interesting to me is, I had this point last night, and everybody going, whoa. This young person apparently last night had a statement released by Harbottle and Lewis that the solicitors who used to represent the Queen, £700+ an hour? Who do you think's paying for that then? Because it's not him, is it? A crack addict?
This whole scenario enraged me, quite frankly, and straight off the back of the Schofield scandal as well. And I think it really smacks of a sense of entitlement in our industry. And I hate to say that, but I've seen things firsthand which alarm me a lot, where people with power, people with status, people with money ride roughshod over those who are either entering into the industry or people they might meet online or in a nightclub or whatever it may be. They use their fame, they use their fortune, but more than anything, they use their network to try and get away with things that the ordinary person can't. And I think that this incident, because there's been so many others at so many other channels, should actually begin a great rethink of how some organisations treat their staff, how some organisations treat their talent, and how some organisations treat complaints. Because I'm sure there are lots of people who send in bogus complaints. I'm certain that happens a lot, and they do have a duty of care towards their employees. But there certainly seems to be, in all of the instances we keep hearing about, a lot of sitting on hands and a lot of people protecting people instead of properly dealing with the situation.
And that, Mike Buckley, is the point. And I should say alleged crack addict about that young person, because that person is the victim in all of this. And if you take exactly what Alex says about do men and women in positions of power in television, radio, whatever, use that power for whatever means, the fact of the matter is that this is not going away. I mean, we were talking in the makeup room, and without, you know, they're all allegations, and we have to make that point nightly. But this is running at the centre of the news. The BBC does not look great right now. Many people will, yes, as Ed Vaizey said last night, use it. We've got an agenda against the BBC to knock them over the head with it. But to have left it like... Even today, Tim Davie, going in round the back, apparently, to get to work, used the back entrance and did all of that sort of stuff, and then goes on the BBC to talk about a problem with the BBC ignoring other reporters. For many people I've spoken to, they're saying, is this a cover-up? Surely it doesn't look great.
I don't think it is a cover-up. I mean, I think the BBC have been put in a difficult position.
Well, he wouldn't come on TalkTV. I tried to get him on.
Well, I'm glad you did. I presume he's had quite a busy day. And I'm not saying that this isn't an important show. It is an important show. I'm here.
Good man.
Good man, exactly. But I would imagine that he has had quite a busy time. And, of course, they will be most concerned, about the young people who've been involved. We know there are at least 2. Maybe there are more.
Yep.
They will be concerned about their staff member, and they will be concerned about other staff members, particularly the male presenters who are being wrongly accused. They would also be concerned about the reputation of the BBC. And I would imagine they will be having conversations about how they deal with complaints in the future.
But the complainant, right, between sending an email and one phone call, they did nothing for weeks. Here's the point Mikey makes, Nick, and I think it's really important. I mean, Jeremy Vine, whoever he is, he tweeted or something tonight saying maybe it's time for this, you know, this person to come out with their name for the sake of all of us innocent people who are rushing around the place trying to live our lives, and we're getting vitriol online.
I would argue that I think enough people are aware now, even though we're not naming this person.
I was reading today that 1 in 6 of the United Kingdom know exactly who it is.
Yeah, precisely. So I don't think necessarily naming them would change much in that. We have to think of what might potentially be at stake for this TV presenter in terms of hiding their behaviour. Would them coming forward mean the end of a marriage, a long-term relationship? Was this also an affair on top of what was going on? Would it out potentially their sexuality? You know, there's lots of other things going on that the BBC have a duty of care over a person. I think their behaviour is disgusting. Now, regardless of, you know, whether it's criminal or not, I don't think it's appropriate behaviour. However, they have to bear that in mind, because there is that duty of care of going, well, we could end a marriage, we could out a person, we could do all these different things.
I think it moves to a different level tonight, guys, doesn't it? Because of these expletive-filled messages and the things that we're saying the police are more involved. The police said to the BBC, step back while we do. I mean, where do you think this goes, Alex? What do you think happens next? More revelations, I guess?
I mean, normally where there's 1 or 2, there ends up being a slew of them, but I don't know. I mean, I don't want to predict anything that would be wrong to. In terms of whether, you know, whoever ended a marriage, it was the person themselves, wasn't it? Himself, who has done that with their behaviours and activities. And I don't think we should ever make excuses for people who treat other people like this. Everyone's got a moral compass and knows the right direction to walk, and there's none of this, oh, well, it might have outed his sexuality, but I don't care.
But it is
wrong.
Yeah, totally. But we saw this was what happened with Philip Schofield, wasn't it? That this kind of happened in 2 sections, didn't it? He ended up coming out, and then there was the revelation about the young man involved in that. I'm just saying that there are...
But all of this, and this is the point and why it's difficult to report it, all of this is assumption. We don't know if this person's married, we don't know if this person has a family, this person, what job they do or whatever. I mean, of course there's loads of speculation. This story will not go away. I believe that Alex is right. There will be more and more coming out. And, of course, the people who want to bash the BBC over the head will use this to score points. Can the BBC... Because I tell you something, Mike, I was talking to somebody today and they said it reminded them only of one thing, Savile, all over again. That's the first thing that came to their mind when they see these things, they think Savile. That's the danger to the BBC, isn't it?
I haven't heard or seen anything yet which equates it to Savile. Savile was obviously an evil perpetrator against children over a long time, and that is different from what we're talking about here.
Of course it is.
Thank goodness it's different.
But it brings in people's minds, the BBC
also,
Savile, or, you know.
Clearly,
Kind of
lots of people knew about Savile over a long period.
Yep.
In the BBC, outside of the BBC, that it appears to not be the case this time. Apparently nobody knew, other than the young people involved, what was going on, so far as we know so far. I mean, this whole case, it concerns me, obviously, about this individual and their behaviour and their mental health.
I know exactly what you're going to say, and I agree with you.
It concerns me about the BBC and its processes. It also concerns me what the Sun has done. The Sun has done this. They have unleashed this on the public, on this person's life, on these young people's lives. Lots of young people are going to be drawn into this.
Because, with respect, I don't agree with you.
Happened.
With respect, from a parental point of view, those parents had gone to the BBC, they had met an absolute brick wall, and I suspect that to try, not to out anybody, but to try and get some sort of help.
I'm not sure that's true. The BBC emailed the family and they called
and then
the family,
did nothing for weeks, Mikey.
But nor did the family try and contact them again, which they could have done.
Is the onus... Come on, the onus is on the BBC.
Apparently, nor did they go to the police, which they could have done. They went to the Sun. I don't know why this family chose to go to the Sun. But I do think that's an open question. Why go to the Sun instead of going to the police if you think that there's been criminality?
Quick word, Nick.
Is about the parents and actually their responsibility to that individual. They should have had a conversation with them directly, because you can't.
Maybe they did.
Yeah, maybe they did, but I worry about that relationship.
I have to say, this is going to go on and on. For now, guys, thank you so much indeed.